Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you made the most of the last session. But hold on, the next session we have a lot for you. Ladies and gentlemen, IMC believes in giving the platform, giving the opportunity at all levels. And India being the fastest growing economy, smart infrastructure is one of the sector where the opportunity for growth is huge. The urban population is growing in India, and because of this, opportunities are increasing as well. According to country's data, the urbanization in India is mainly due to the expansion of cities and the migration of people. Investments are made in housing, road network, urban transport, water supply, power related infrastructure, smart cities, and other forms of urban management. This is the bright future the Indian economy has in store for itself. The session panelists will deliberate on the following topics: opportunities in India's urban infrastructure, affordable housing in India, transport business opportunities in India, water and water waste, wastewater management in India, power and power infrastructure requirements in India. Ladies and gentlemen, and I would be quick to inform you that this session will be from 11:45 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. In the interest of time, I will request participants to please view or download all speakers' profile from help desk in reception area. And of course, if anyone would like to ask a question, ladies and gentlemen, all you need to do is click on Ask Queries button on your screen and put your question. It will go directly to the moderator. And now, ladies and gentlemen, please allow me to introduce you to our session moderator, Mr. Sailesh Pathak, Chief Executive Officer and Whole-Time Director, L&T Infrastructure Development Projects Limited. And ladies and gentlemen, I will also introduce you to our panelist for this session, Ms. Amrita Chaudhary, Director and CEO, Gaia. Mr. Joy Bhandekar, Group President in Shorts. And lastly, ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Sanjay Mukherjee, Vice Chairman and Managing Director, City and Industrial Development Corporation. Ladies and gentlemen, let me just remind you this session will start now. And I would request the moderator, sir, to please take over the session.
Ladies and gentlemen, we've had two excellent sessions, the opening session and the investment session. And now we are moving into the smart infrastructure session. So I'm actually, before starting on smart infrastructure, I will just say that I'm very happy to be present in this IMC event because I graduated from IIMC, IIM Calcutta, and I've spent 6 years of my life in Bombay, in Mumbai. So all good wishes to the Indian Merchants Chamber and the global audience that is watching this. On smart infrastructure, we have three excellent speakers, and I'm sure you have already looked at their bios. If not, there is a link on the lobby page for each bio of each speaker. I remember the question, what is a smart city? When we in India launched the smart cities mission sometime in 2015, everybody used to talk about what is it. And I remember Prime Minister Modi's inaugural speech saying, let us not get too tied up about what is a smart city. A city that is good for its citizens is a smart city. And in my own view, a smart city is something where a place where a 6-year-old can walk to her school without any grown up, where the child's father can walk to their offices, and in the evening, where the child and her parents can walk to the nearest recreational area. I think that is a smart city. But Without further ado, we have three very experienced speakers. I would like to ask them a very specific question. And let's begin with Amrita, if I may. We'll go then to Joy, and Dr. Mukherjee will have the final word. Let's just talk about what kind of smart infrastructure have you worked on in the last 6 to 12 months? Yeah. What do you intend to do about smart infrastructure in the next 5 years? You specifically. Let's take 4 to 6 minutes each. Amrita, over to you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Pathak. First of all, delighted to be here on this IMC panel, and I'm also a member of IMC on the Ease of Living Committee. So, there again, the citizen-centric perspective that you talked about comes in. But let me just begin a little bit as to what do we mean by smart infra, and what we specifically at Gaia mean by smart infra. So, infrastructure, as we define it, is basically at the public and urban infrastructure stage, but there is also private infrastructure in terms of townships, in terms of buildings which are consumers of electricity and power, and so on. And there is also the associated infra which relates to transport, mobility, so airports, railways, roadways, and so on. So all of that becomes a part of the wider smart infra framework as we define it. And from a Gaia perspective, we provide monitoring and operations tech solutions for connected sites and connected cities. And when we are looking at our solution, we look at it from a few different lenses. One is this lens of public and private infra, and that comes from our clients who are both governments and cities, but also private sector, asset management people and so on. Who are running buildings, hospitals, warehouses, and so on. The other lens is of the physical and the digital infrastructure, because our solutions are obviously, they require instrumentation, they require connectivity. So there is a hardware component to it. There is the software where you're looking at analytics, you're looking at insights, and seeing how do you innovate for India? How do you make it hardy enough for India? Because our last mile challenges are immense when we are looking at implementing the smart infrastructure, right? Specifically in terms of power disruptions, connectivity disruptions, which we need to manage. The third lens is about technology and design, really how technology interacts with the infrastructure, and how it needs to interact with users, both the government and the city users and the third-party vendors, service providers who are providing the service, and the citizens who are consuming these services. Right? So we look, when we are crafting our own solutions, we look a lot at that framework of trying to see usability, how do you increase adoption, how do you do change management, right? And especially when we are looking at these smart solutions, which are new at the city level, at the state urban development authority kind of clients, those clients have not used these technologies before. So there is a change management that needs to happen from the last mile staff and officials up to the boardroom level, where at the boardroom level, you really need to see, okay, what am I implementing? What is it impacting? And at the last mile worker level, you need to see that, I'm able to actually perform my work easily using these new systems and instruments and solutions and platforms that we are putting in. So, specifically, if you ask, what have we done? I mean, in Kakinada Smart City, we've deployed a citywide LoRaWAN network and the IoT platform on which multiple third-party solutions such as air quality monitoring, smart bins, transportation, and so on are running. In we have a smart sanitation solution which is live for Swachh Bharat and across 100 plus cities. For Indian Railways, we're helping them manage some of the onboard operations of all the privatized trains. So about 18,000 staff on when the Railways was running on a full-time basis was using this system. All the Shatabdis, Rajdhanis, the high-value trains that you can think of have been using this system. Airports Authority, 32 airports, we've been doing a whole bunch of different things. So I don't want to enumerate the things, but the idea is that these clients really span the city level, transportation and logistics level, as well as at the commercial and real estate and private townships and so on, where we're doing utilities. And the idea is really, how do you stitch together solutions which are bringing together hardware, software, analytics, deep learning, and all of that, to bring that last mile monitoring, bring that last mile data driven operations that is required to move our the cities or the infrastructure to the next stage. The other thing that we've been doing a lot of is really looking at the concept and design of smart infra and smart cities, which really requires having a set of teams who are bringing together expertise in the different components that we are talking about, right? Whether we're looking at smart mobility or communications, we're looking at water, wastewater, solid waste. So from a design perspective, we have teams who are looking at full end-to-end design. We worked as creating the DPRs and the documentation, the BPR reports, doing program management of implementation, and so on. So we worked with Swachh Bharat mission at the national level for smart cities, 14 of the smart cities, the tech component of the challenge plans we've written. We've worked with three smart cities, Agra being the most prominent of them, but also Aurangabad and Lucknow, on program management consulting, looking at the tech blueprint design for these cities, as well as looking at the implementation management. So all of this collectively gives us a really wide lens of looking at infra, looking at seeing how do you create those models, the models where there is public funding but also private funding that can come in, and public infrastructure and private infrastructure in our cities can be managed. Looking at resilience, because as I said, our conditions at the last mile are very different. So just transplanting something from a global market doesn't really work. It needs to be stitched and suited for the Indian context. It needs to be usable, because really our last mile solutions have to be used by our systems, for example, are used all the way from Swachhata workers on the field to the boardroom at the national level, right? So the system needs to be such that, at the last mile level, it is very easy for somebody to use the system. But at the same time, it is seamlessly giving you a lot of information and data so that it becomes useful at the boardroom level. There's a lot of innovation that is required still. And innovation both in hardware, in analytics. We've seen a lot of budget that India has allocated towards AI. There's a lot of, right now, actually, in the last year, what we are seeing is that, so for example, for our own products, for our own hardware that we design, some of the components have not been available in India. So even though you say make in India, and we are designing and getting it manufactured in India, if the component itself is not available, and it because of import restrictions and so on, then we need to really look at manufacturing down to the component level now, right? So that we have availability of things. And then the other thing is around procuring from startups, because a lot of innovation actually happens in startups, and in the smart larger infra space, procurement happens through big projects. So how do these small startups plug into the ecosystem? How do they create the consortiums, the networks? How do they get a chance to play? Is really something that is critical. And lastly is the impact of infrastructure, because infrastructure really, if you look at it, there is construction angles involved in infra and in deploying and maintaining of infra. So it is a job creator. It is a pivot of the economy. It does move logistics, especially if we look at and with the earlier session talked a lot about the ESG goals, and the ESG goals, especially in water sanitation, are met through some of the smart infra that we are talking about, right? And one of the latest, I think, areas that we're seeing from NIUA and Government of India is in citizen services. So using solutions and platforms, which actually, like, we've been doing. So our solutions are sort of multi-stakeholder governance platforms. So we're able to bring together the government, their multiple vendors, their staff onto a common platform, sometimes the citizens as well, so that the citizen service delivery, like, is a lot more seamless. And that again seems to be an area that is of interest at the moment and of critical importance. I think in a nutshell, like, I'll say that from our lens at Gaia, we think a lot of design thinking and systems thinking to craft our solutions, and a lot of, like, in-depth technical expertise that we bring in to look at the last mile implementation. And even when we are designing, knowing where the pitfalls are, knowing where the challenges are, is critical to design for resilience and to design for impact.
Thank you, Amrita, doing some impressive work. Let me just uh, mention about design thinking. A remarkable change has happened in terms of smart infrastructure, leading to citizen satisfaction in the last. And that is the point that now toll plazas don't have traffic jams. So all of you, unless you've not been using your cars, are now going to have FASTag stickers on your windscreen. And since my company, L&T IDPL, runs a large portfolio of assets, including road assets, 2% was the electronic tolling in November 2016, 2%. Now it is 93%. And suddenly, when you went to the Mumbai-Pune Expressway, you said, oh my God, that toll plaza is coming up. Suddenly, that toll plaza is a breeze. So in my book, that is smart infrastructure. And I'll talk more
Absolutely.
about other things that our group has done. L&T is a very large group, and it has done a lot of digitalization and smart infrastructure. But before that, Joy, over to you. Last 6 to 12 months, next 5 years.
Yeah, thank you, Shailesh, and thank you, IMC, for giving me this opportunity to be a part of this distinguished panel and varied participants with various backgrounds. So, in the last couple of years, I've been involved with the electric vehicles that we've been working on as a part of Ola that time. And we were the pioneers who launched EV vehicles when it was pretty new, right? And now, of course, I'm still an advisor on the Ola board, and we are building a large factory there in Chennai. But what we should also look at is we've got a lot of experience on the viability and what are the challenges, right? So, with respect to the EV vehicles, we find that one, the cost, the charging time, all of that. So, public utility vehicles would have a lot of challenges on that, especially in a taxi like that. Now, if you have a driver who's charging the electric EV battery and it got 4 hours, so I would joke with my folks that what does he do? Does he play Tash for those 4 hours? He drives the car. See, he's fighting for survival. Let us be honest, right? And his remuneration that he gets after riding the vehicle is not much. Now we have to be cognizant of that fact. So beyond EV, there is another uh, company where we were doing turbines generating electricity with the flow of water and very micro turbines which would supply electricity to the villages, to the grid, and also it would pump in water. So all of this that free electricity, water supply, all of that was taken care of. These are small initiatives where I've been involved with. But what I would like to lay more stress on in India is that we have smart cities, we are moving towards that, and it's a need of the hour. And the Honorable Prime Minister has taken huge initiatives and leads in this, right? But what we should be cautious about is the implementation, execution, and once that is done, the question is how do you sustain? and improvise. I think we should be very, very cautious on these two aspects, because what happens is with smart city, I personally feel the cost of sustaining it and improvising it over a period of time will be there. And that cost has to be coming from the citizens. It cannot come from the government. It's not going to be sustainable. Or we are going to have a large kingdom, beautiful kingdom, but you don't have the money to maintain it. Now that's not going to work, right? So because why I'm saying this is today a lot of Sanjay would be able to maybe share more light on this. Many of the municipalities across the country and most of the municipalities have huge dues. House taxes are not being paid. Now, how does the municipality sustain this smart city? Now, government is going to give grant, but then beyond that, it has to be sustained. You have to improvise. Second, we have to be also cognizant while doing this is that a lot of the illegal activities that would happen, right? Because of the sheer size and population of this country, people migrating from the rural areas to the urban areas, and they're just fighting for survival. Now, how do we take care of that, right? Because if you're going to destroy that infrastructure, the smart infrastructure, that's not going to be easy and good for the rest of the citizens. Next, we should also look at when we look at the smart infrastructure, the pollution free energy, or any other stuff, we should be cognizant of the fact that what are the repercussions of this over the long term. Whether the residual part of this infrastructure is biodegradable, or are we going to think about it when that problem comes for the future generation to be sunk on that. And mind you, we are not a large economy like the US where they can then figure it out, right? So these are some of the things which we should be very cognizant of. And what I would look at is when we look at more of the smart infrastructure, we should have it adaptable to the Indian conditions, considering that the population, the economic income levels of the individuals, how do they sustain the cultural and other aspects. Otherwise, we would be having smart cities, but we will not be able to, they'll just be icons and nothing beyond that. So these are the few things which are concerning me of today. And I think the various authorities or others, participants should deliberate on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Joy. Picking from what about the execution challenges and the implementation challenges, perhaps we should rise above the smart city infrastructure only, and we should talk about infrastructure. So, just to share a personal anecdote, about 3 weeks ago, I was in some very poor villages in Bihar and UP. And I made it a point to go into each household, especially in the poorer part of the village, to see whether domestic infrastructure had improved. And I was so happy to see that each house had a household piped water connection. I think that is a very smart infrastructure for those people.
Yes.
Each house had a cooking gas, a stove, and cylinder. That is very smart infrastructure for those poor families. So the lady of the house is suddenly saving so much time. She does not have to fetch water. She does not have to fetch fuel wood. Now this is smart infrastructure, and this has been executed. So just for a moment, getting back to our broader definition of infrastructure, and I'll call on you, Sanjay. Uh, in our business, L&T is doing a lot of construction and infrastructure. We have managed to take lead in digitalization, and we are actually artificial intelligence using all the sensor data that we acquire across our sites. But there are four broad stages of any infrastructure project, really. The first is design. The second is financing. If you can't raise the money, you don't build it. The third is actually construction. And the fourth is operation. So, when design, financing, construction, and operation. Sanjay, you've been doing some amazing work in municipal governance, where the fourth stage of operation could certainly do with some smart infrastructure. So, over to you. What have you done over the last 6 to 12 months, and what do you intend to do over the next 5 years?
Thank you, Shailesh ji. And hello to Amrita and Joy. And hello to all the other people who are watching this. At the onset, I'd like to thank Indian Merchant Chambers for having organized this event and having given me the opportunity to be here. I actually, when we were discussing this and when hearing all the other participants, then something came to my mind. I think in 2015, Government of India declared this smart city concept. The Prime Minister announced it. And as usual, Government of India comes out with policy booklets.
Have we,
I think he's frozen. Connectivity
all
may be
right,
an
he'll come
issue
back.
here. Yeah,
That's
we'll wait
right.
for
But
it.
Amrita and Joy, you can hear me?
I can
Yes,
hear you.
Right. We'll wait 10
They
seconds
came out with
for Sanjay to come back.
a policy booklet. That smart means IT in which everybody was thinking. And then I attended a seminar. In that seminar, somebody gave a presentation of the city of Songdo, which is a hub.
In
And
Korea.
there it is apparently like this, that when you leave your office at the right time, at that time, the air conditioning in your room comes out. And as the air conditioning of the room starts, when you reach your home, the lighting is exactly as you want, etc., etc. So that was the ultimate pinnacle of smartness. When we got into the implementation phase, then we said, ki, where to do in Mumbai? So in Mumbai, they make Parel smart. But then Parel is developing as a business hub, but you can't make it like Songdo. So what is it? And then that time I had thought, ki, there are 5 parameters perhaps, which is my proposal. These are the 5 things which should be there in any smart city. And the first of them is a very simple concept of livability. Is livable. Like a city of Gurgaon, for instance, beautiful housing complexes. Get out. Can you walk in the streets? Can you breathe that air? So the first concept, perhaps, and live.
Sanjay ji, your internet connection is patchy. I heard the first
Mom and
parameter
pop
is
stores.
livability. Uh, I heard the first concept is livability. We could hear you off and on, Sanjay ji.
I
Perhaps
think so.
he needs to switch to
Am I
another
audible?
network. Yeah, you are, but so
Okay, I'll do
just
that.
to repeat, Dr. Sanjay said there are 5 concepts that he came up with. The first was livability, and
Give me a moment.
yeah, yeah. While Sanjay is changing his network, there is a question from the audience. Amrita and Joy can think about it. The question is, the doubt is, whilst developing smart infrastructure, is the planned urbanization considering and factoring the weather parameter changes in the long run? Which is true. Urban areas typically become hotspots. Yeah. Right. Sanjay, back to you.
Now?
So we heard livability. Yeah.
Yeah, so the first concept, as I feel, is livability. The second one is ease of working. So
Ease
ease
of
of
working.
working, in case larger costs would be the ease of doing business. In case of a mom and pop store, it would be operating his commuting to the work, etc., etc. So that is the ease of. Is that what do you do? Like Kolkata. Kolkata had a very strong cultural background, and therefore Kolkata, Mumbai has a culture of its own. So the cultural Do you perform? Do you have places where people can showcase their art? So that is the third part, which I think is missing, and where as a when you plan a city, then perhaps that you need to look into. The fourth is the need to care for your own health, because you are the machine, and this is the machine that will operate. So the fourth would be sports, healthcare, and wellness is another thing which should be there in the city to make it livable. And the last, and perhaps one of the most important things, is how connected is the city. So is it connected within itself, and is it connected to other growth centers and other cities outside? So if we have these five things: livability, employment and ease of working, culture, sports and well-being, and lastly connectivity in any city, then I think that will become smart. And then how do you make these things? So as Shailesh said, you design, you plan, you construct, you finance, and finally you operate. So how do you do these things? Generally, we are being very much focused on technology. And I'd like to speak on technology, that in technology, we need to really think what is smart technology for a particular segment of the population might not be smart technology for the other segment. Like senior citizens find it very, very difficult to use maybe a smartphone, but a child of 14 years age knows more about smartphone technology than perhaps people of our age group
All of us.
would be looking into. So in such circumstances, the role of the citizens of the city in deciding what they want, they need to educate the public representatives so that they are able to bring out those points. The need to finance, like Joy said, if people do not pay their taxes, then what do we do? So in the Sitco's premise, the areas where we work, we have a municipal corporation which doesn't levy taxes. It doesn't pay. It doesn't pay the water charges. So Sitco levies service charges from that place, and we recover those service charges, and we recover the water charges. Now, if a urban local body does not understand the importance of levying taxes, and the fundamental thing that it is a sovereign who levies taxes, nobody else can levy taxes. If this understanding is not there in the urban local body, then I think there's a large amount of education that needs to go. Now, our country is so very diverse that I think to be really smart, we need to be extremely diverse. We need to have different, modules. What will work in Mumbai will not work in Navi Mumbai. What will work in Navi Mumbai
Yes.
will not work in Raigad. What will work in Raigad will not work in Aurangabad. And what's working in Aurangabad is not going to work in Burhanpur. What will work in Burhanpur will not work in Bhopal, and vice versa. You can go all over. Having said that, in Sitco, we are really on being smart, as they say, and our focus has also been a lot on IT. I think with pandemic that we are facing, all of us are smarter than what we are. This is sort of a war. Normally, what happens in a war? In a war, there is loss to life. There is no loss to property, and the loss is not the loss to life at work. So it is the Samaj which is changing. The system now, as Shailesh said, percent to 90% within a very short time. Living from home, which are savvy. All our services are provided online. We cover our online, and when we plan a city, when we design the city, then we cover the rest of the people. And therefore, I think city and most of the cities are having slightly better, the years, and more and more people are attracted here. Those five factors, and
Um, I don't know if Amrita and Joy, you can hear Sanjay, but I think he's concluded. And I thought those five factors were amazingly well
the use
put.
of appropriate technology is what is going
Right. Absolutely. So the three things that I would like to repeat from Sanjay's comments, the five factors. Actually, it's not just about technology and what app you design. Those five factors determine whether a city is going to be attractive or not. The second is it's also about governance. I mean, you can lay down all the smart technologies, but if there is no willingness to charge, let alone willingness to pay, then cities are not going to go anywhere. And the third is that what's going to work in Mumbai is not going to work in Nagpur. And I'm very happy to know that Sanjay is a qualified medical doctor from Nagpur. So we are in safe hands. Let me just uh, ask if there's any questions from the floor. But I have a question. Have any of you looked at the recently launched Municipal Performance Index and the Ease of Living Index, which was launched by Minister Hardeep Puri, Urban Minister, last week? Because that has a very interesting ranking on ease of living and another ranking on Municipal Performance Index. And for all those who want to take the smart infrastructure area as a market and develop cash flows, maybe you should begin from the last 15 cities on that chart and try to get them up the ranking like Amrita you did with the smart cities. So any comments on the ease of living index?
Yeah, I have a point here. I'm not trying to be sarcastic, but what I'm trying to come back again and again is we have to adapt whatever we do in India to the Indian conditions, right? And that comes from the capability of how to manage and sustain it financially. Now, when you said the municipal performance index, when you have the staff of the municipal staff not being paid for months, now, can you, I mean, Shailesh, you would know that if you don't pay your employees well, right, or you don't pay them at all, can you ask them for a performance appraisal? Can you talk about? So, the garbage not being cleaned in Delhi, and it's all over the world, all over the country rather, right? So we have to be cognizant that yes, when we talk about all these factors, these are nice to have, but are we able to sustain it financially, and is the citizen willing to pay for it? If not, I mean, you have house taxes not being paid for years, and then after some time there's a one time settlement for house taxes, there's a one time settlement for electricity bill payment. Now, how being paid for years, and then after some one-time settlement for house tax, there's a one-time settlement electricity bill payment. Now,
Hmm.
Please. Um, so, having listened to the three eminent panelists, I'd just like to leave everyone in the audience with one thought. You know, one of the sponsors of this conference uh, has actually picked up a majority stake in a next generation transportation platform called Skytran, Skytran. Very interesting concept. Check it out online. So now, if we are going to benefit from Skytran in India, should we try to drive this magnetic levitation, very environment friendly transportation mechanism in cities? Or should we begin with solving a problem such as the India Tibet border, where the other side can drive a bus to the border and we have to trek up for 7 days? So, if we deliver a solution there, suddenly all the cities in not only in India, but all major cities in the world will come knocking to our doors. So, in terms of addressing the market for smart infrastructure, the next 10 years, I hope, are going to see more action than the last 30. Thank you very much, IMC. Thank you very much, our panelists.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for your valuable time. And ladies and gentlemen, now I would like to thank our panelists for their insight and their views. Ladies and gentlemen, it is so wonderful to see digital world connecting all you beautiful people with us. And I'm sure, just like me, you too are having a wonderful experience. And ladies and gentlemen, as I said, great minds at work, not just in front of camera, but of course, the backstage too. And now, I would just like to request all of you to stay glued to your mobiles, laptop, computers, because we're going to start the next session soon.